Redditors who lost their job because of a post to a social media platform. What happened? I had to fire someone for one. He was a volunteer firefighter and left for a call, which I allowed. 15 minutes later, someone showed me his 5-minute-old post of him riding quads, saying something along the lines of, "Sometimes you just need to F off from work." That put him on a final warning. He then left because he said his house was on fire. Then half an hour later, his wife tagged him in a photo of him sitting in a kiddie pool in front of his house. The funny thing is, in both cases, if he had simply asked to leave early, I probably would have said yes. Edit. To clarify, this was over different days, a few weeks apart, and he worked for me, but also volunteered as a firefighter. The fire chief also found out about this and dismissed him from that position. This guy had a few issues, needless to say, and honesty was not something with which he was familiar. Story 2. I work in a hospital, and there was a police shooting in my area a couple of years ago, and multiple officers were brought into our emergency. One officer passed, and a number of idiot hospital employees posted condolences on their Facebook pages with the name of the officer before the family was officially informed. If memory serves, 7 or 8 employees were rightfully fired for that one. Story 3. I once didn't get a job since I don't have Facebook EC. Apparently, they wanted to see the kind of person I was, and I told them I like my privacy. Story 4. I didn't lose my job over a Facebook post, but I recently got someone fired because of one I made. I got a call from my parents last weekend that our older dog had been hit and passed by the newspaper delivery driver for their neighborhood. This younger girl was constantly speeding, 45 on a short residential road, and seen on her phone while driving. Complaints had been made before, but apparently no action was taken. The dog was 13 years old and could barely manage to hobble. So it was clearly a case of the driver going too fast and not paying attention. She even had the audacity to cuss at my dad while he was trying to get the dog off the street. The newspaper company wasn't returning calls to my parents regarding the driver's safety and behavior. So I decided to give them a push in the right direction and made a shaming post on their Facebook page. It got attention and went as viral as a local newspaper's page can get, and they finally got in contact and terminated the driver's contract. And the comments are exactly why I took down my Facebook post after the issue was resolved. A bunch of armchair lawyers with no context making judgments. I'll go ahead and respond to a few of these points. My parents live in a small town about 2 miles from what could be considered a main road. We've had dogs there for 20 years at this point, and this is the first incident. Our first dog actually did roam all day, like the 4 other dogs that lived in the neighborhood. My parents got an invisible fence once the state took over maintenance of the road, and it got paved since that meant vehicles other than just neighbors would be driving on it, mail, deliveries, etc. The first dog lived to 16, even under these dangerous conditions of being allowed off a leash. My point is, this isn't New York or even a suburb. This is a very close-knit, small-town neighborhood off the main road, and my parents got an invisible fence as soon as safety became an issue. Regarding why the older dog was off the leash in the road, my dad was taking the 2 dogs for a walk. The younger one, the dog that was hit son, is 13 but still relatively spry, so he goes off ahead. The older dog is slow and usually waits until they're ahead to leave the yard, and then she catches up. My dad walks them back to the pier at the end of the road. So in total, the dogs are unleashed on the actual street for 50 feet. They're never let out of the yard without being on a supervised walk. There aren't any leash laws where my parents live, and having the dogs under verbal control is legal for the area. I looked up the laws because I took this into account after it happened. Regarding the, I hope you're happy for getting the girl fired, she was a dangerous driver anyways, there's no way the dog just surprised her by jumping out in the road with as slow she was. She was clearly being careless, and she didn't hear my dad yelling for the dog either. She deserved to be fired for her driving. If the main aspect of your job is driving, you should be good at it and do it safely. This is a neighborhood with children, and she has proven time and again safety is not her priority. Story 5. A former colleague of mine posted about how he was going to use up all his sick leave, then quit. He posted it at 9 a.m. He was told he had no more job at 11. Story 6. I had to fire an employee for a tweet he wrote about a customer. He tweeted, customer's full name, would be a great name for an adult star. I found out about it when the customer's lawyer called me the next day threatening action. Turns out the guy worked for the local newspaper and obsessively searched his name on all social media. Story 7. Not me, but the company I work for. A prospective employee just passed his interview and was told that all he needs to do is pass a substances test and a physical, and he would start on Monday. The company Facebook guy found the new hire on Facebook, and the guy had just posted 20 minutes after the interview. Crap, anyone know how to pass a substances test in 24 hours? The guy's job is not Facebook guy. He's the social media marketing and customer service guy. Promotes the business, talks with people, and posts to social media websites. Story 8. I was younger and an idiot. I posted something on Facebook about wanting to go home and play The Sims so I could create telecommunications store I worked for on it and then slowly kill off all the customers. I was working a late night shift in a mall and forgot our new coworker had added me on Facebook days. Story 9. Joined a games studio alongside a guy who just finished his philosophy. He felt that the game's official forums were the best place to discuss whether disabled people would be of as much value as pigs after a post-apocalyptic event, and if they should be simply slaughtered and eaten, all using his company account, of course. Story 10. I used to work for Geek Squad in college, and a coworker was fired when a famous actor came in and she posted on Facebook a lot of his private info. Like full name came into our store and bought this, and has a black Amex card and stuff he had on his computer. Not once, but on 2 separate occasions. Story 11. Worked at GameStop until 2010. The store was in a mall, and parents would always leave their kids in the store and go do their shopping. Sometimes the children would cry, sometimes they'd pee themselves, even had one too. Parents would get mad at us for not bringing them to the bathroom. What the heck? Or start screaming at their kids for not just playing games for a few hours without causing any problems. I tweeted about how the store wasn't there to babysit children and never really thought about that tweet again. Until a few months later, same thing. Parent drops kid off in store, leaves. 20 minutes later, an older-looking guy is outside the store on his flip phone, aiming it at the store. He's creeping me out, but I continue offering pointless warranties to customers while waiting for my next break. And then, I noticed him walk near the entrance of the store and ask that kid where his parents are. This seemed really fishy, and the guy looked beyond suspicious. I was thinking he could be a pedo, and I was right. He gets the kid to go with him. I call up Mal Security so they could check it out, and they caught him before he left the mall. He was arrested. The kid was crying, asking for his mom, who Mal Security could not reach because, as it turns out, she went to some stores outside of the mall area, and she didn't actually come back for another 2 hours, at which point she threatened to sue me. GameStop, the mall, etc. Security guard lady told her that child services were called. They all walked away. That was the last time I saw them. A few days later, district manager, DM, shows up in store, and I was fired on the spot because that lady made a complaint. DM found my Twitter and informed me that my approach to yesterday's dilemma and my tweet about how GameStop isn't a babysitting service has made them believe that I don't have the GameStop spirit. Both the manager and district manager told me I could use them as a reference on my resume, though, which was great until they both lost their jobs a few weeks later. Story 12. Not me, but a girl on my Facebook worked for the postal service in my town. She posted on Facebook how she wanted to hit her boss and went into some detail. Then, about 5 hours later, she posted another status about how the feds showed up at her house and that one of her coworkers had showed her boss the status, and she was now fired. She's obviously really dumb and trashy. Story 13. A company I worked for had it written into their 7-page contracts that you were not allowed to even reference said company on social media. Anyone in breach would be fired instantly. There's a page on Facebook called We Hate that's currently one of the world's biggest corporate hate pages. It all started when someone working in our call center posted online about how much the customers suck. Then began something of a war between the staff and customers posting on employees' walls and vice versa. The company is a major player in its market, essentially had a monopoly, and there was a noticeable drop in sales that year. All in all, around 20 people were fired. Story 14, former Chipotle manager here. As many of you know, Chipotle gives away free crap on Halloween, so it's a mandatory weekend for everyone to work. Well, one of our employees called off that Thursday saying he had swine flu. Right, of course he posted pics of his weekend partying on his FB, upon which he was friends with our kitchen manager, general manager, and district manager, per company policy, and common damn sense. You can't return to work from serious contagious crap without a doctor's note. So he shows back up on Wednesday acting all fine and saying the doc cleared him. Oh, but his mom threw his release note away. Too bad, buddy, we need that crap or you can't work. Since we didn't know when he would have it, we only gave him 1 day on the schedule anyway. So then his mommy calls me and asks why he can't work. I ask her if she went to a restaurant and found out a cook hadn't proven he was cleared from having swine flu. Would she eat there? She saw my point, but it's not his fault she threw away the note. They were remodeling. I asked, why can't the doc write a new one? Well, he went on vacation. Couldn't the receptionist or a PA get them something? She huffed and hung up on me. The next day, he puts on FB Dear Chipotle and managers. Instead of cutting hours on someone, why not grow the ducking balls to fire them outright? Suck my junk. Pretty easy to let him go after that. Story 15. I didn't lose my job, but I watched a friend lose his over a tweet. He tweeted, so getting BJ while delivering pizzas is pretty sweet one night while he was working. The next morning he tweeted, damn you, Papa John's, I don't need you or your stupid job anyway, or something to that effect. I've never laughed so hard in my life. Story 16. I was not fired, but a coworker took a picture of me while I was on a smoke break and posted it on Facebook. She tagged the store location and myself. Just for having a cigarette in my mouth, I got talked to and she got fired. Story 17. I was once passed over for a job because I barely use Facebook. They straight up told me that they couldn't trust me because of how little info was on my page. For future reference, I'm sorry employers that 90% of my Facebook page is related to StarCraft or miscellaneous gaming. I'm sorry that I don't get drunk and post embarrassing photos of things you could fire me over. My personal life is my business and not Facebook. Story 18, Oh Boy Scarf Tuesday story time. So here's a funny and quite immature story. I'll keep it short and sweet. I worked for a place that has a gift shop. Inside of this gift shop were the most ugly, unwearable scarves on the face of the planet. I was younger and didn't really care about the company or any possible consequence. I started a movement called Scarf Tuesday. Basically, a few of us on the clock would meet up at 9 every Tuesday and wear a scarf for a photo on Facebook. These photos started getting likes, and people loved them, so we kept going. A few months later, I get pulled into my boss's office. On the wall, I crap you not, are at least 20 of the Scarf Tuesday pictures with the faces blurred out. My boss asked me, to this day, the funniest question I've ever been asked. What do you see here? I smiled and told him it looked like employees wearing scarves. He said he found it hilarious, but it was unacceptable, and he was disappointed. Apparently somebody watching the cameras wasn't happy and watched us for weeks piling evidence. Everybody, 15 people at least, had similar meetings in the next few days. I didn't get canned right away because we stopped doing Scarf Tuesday, but the retaliation was awful, and eventually, I was blamed for just about everything that went wrong and got fired. Looking back at it, it was foolish. I fell into a deep depression for a few months because of being unemployed. It helped me grow into a man, though, and now I have a full-time managerial job making twice as much. I'll never regret it because it brought me on a path that led to a better life. Story 19, I posted a blog post on MySpace in 2005 that got me discharged from the Army. I indicated I had romantic feelings for a female and that I had acted on those feelings. I am also female. My sergeant suspected I was involved with this woman, so she looked me up on MySpace, saw the blog post, and 3 months later, I was discharged for inappropriate conduct. Story 20, I got fired from an internship for posting on Reddit before. It was a very small environmental engineering consulting firm. We were doing work on a site that had lead and arsenic contamination on it. The site was very dusty, and if it didn't rain for a few days, the dust would often kick up and blow onto the street next to the site, which happened to be the main road in this semi-smallish town. Someone mentioned on Reddit, in a totally unrelated way, that they were from this. I made a mention of the contamination and told the dude that if he ever saw dust coming off the site, that he should contact the engineers, which were housed above one of the local bars. Apparently, this guy didn't really want the site to be redeveloped at all because of the already high congestion in the surrounding roads, and he called and complained and mentioned my post on Reddit. The company was so small, it was obvious it was me who posted it, and I fessed up about what I had said and immediately deleted the post. Even though I didn't do anything illegal or even remotely immoral, I was fired because I was seen as a liability. Damn that. People deserve to know if the dust they're breathing in could give them cancer. I moved on to a different field, marine biology, and haven't even remotely looked back. Story 21, not me, but a coworker of mine was fired recently because he got caught sneaking off work to smoke weed and drink by Facebook. This git would post photos of him smoking and drinking on Facebook. The boss found out and predictably fired him on the spot. The best part, this guy was almost 30 years old and not just some dumb teenager. Story 22. My female friend, 18, was DM'd through Twitter by the news presenter, 37, of our city. He was talking about her beach pictures and how she's really pretty and how they need to get together. She ended up telling him that it's pretty ridiculous that he's trying to get with her. He lost his job later that week. The only real reason he lost his job was because he used the Weather Channel's Twitter account. Story 23. I was working as a bartender and server for a place. The assistant manager was a petty tyrant and treated the staff like crap. I had made several complaints about him to the general manager and the owner with some of the other staff, but they refused to do anything about it. So I was done with this place and was currently looking for a new job when one day I was barrending and a very young-looking girl came. She hands me her out-of-state ID, and I can tell that it is fake. I politely tell her that I can't serve her alcohol and explain that in this state we don't legally have to accept out-of-state IDs, blah, blah, blah. She was actually very understanding, and there was no scene or issue. Her friends arrive and they move to a table, and I inform their server about the fake ID. It is around this time that the assistant manager, who had been drinking Bloody Mary at the bar next door all morning and then napping in the office, came over. He then starts telling me that I don't know what a fake ID looks like, and I don't have the right to refuse service and how stupid I am. He then tells me I have to serve the girl. I inform him that I have the legal right to refuse service, and he cannot force me to. Anyway, I go home and post on the Facebook about my day, and then include a photo of when I was managing a liquor store holding a device of medieval defense made out of all the fake IDs we had confiscated in 1 year. Also a crown. The next day I was called in and let go for refusing to cooperate with management and what have you. Story 24, labor and employment lawyer here. I've seen people fired for the following: posts insulting a supervisor, the employer, customers, co-workers, posts that show the employee has been lying about something. He's been out on FMLA leave, claiming he's in so much pain he can't sit upright at his desk. And then he posts a picture of himself weightlifting. Posts showing the employee is violating the rules of the workplace, especially safety or hygiene. A factory worker posting a pic of himself climbing on dangerous machinery. Posts so offensive that the company could suffer PR damage if the general public knew this person was an employee. Jokes, posts advocating the overthrow of the government, posts by a doctor mocking a patient's illness, posts by an employee bragging about how she is so overpaid, etc. It's worth noting that most employees in the USA are at will by default. That means you can quit for any reason at any time, but your employer can also fire you for any reason at any time. There are obviously exceptions to this. If there is a contract that provides otherwise, if the employer fires you for an illegal reason, etc. But unless some exception applies to your situation, there's usually nothing wrong with an employer looking at your stupid Facebook posts and deciding, not really someone we'd like to have on board. Story 25. Not me, but my mom's ex-boyfriend. He was a waiter at a very elite restaurant and had normally expected very nice tips. Some guy left him a $5 tip for an over $100, and he got pissed and posted the customer's information on Facebook. He got fired the next day. So he was actually a very good waiter. High-end restraints really wanted him. It probably went to his head at some point because he started to pick up a drinking, staying out late after work habit. He started having some issues with my mom as well, and they became roommates only. My mom moved out and he got really stressed. And I heard from his prior manager that he started getting strikes at work. He also frequently ranted on Facebook about bad customers. A while later, he posted the customer's info on Facebook and was fired. From what I know now, he's got a job at a bar, but is still drinking. He wasn't a bad guy by any means. He just started losing himself and making really bad choices. My mom still keeps in contact with his family, but from what I hear, it's still bad. Story 26. I worked customer support for a mobile game company. I was honest with a disheartened customer who had complained that recent changes had made the game pay to win. It had, in truth, been a glitch with an update. I told them as much, assuring them the team would be fixing it in the next update. But then the game's profits skyrocketed. The team kept the glitch and put out a statement describing the change as an intentional one designed to improve the play experience. But there was my name, plastered all over the game forums, claiming the opposite. I technically worked for a separate company that provided support for several studios, but the studio behind this game was our biggest customer. They approached my bosses. Furious, I jeopardized their cash cow and demanded I be fired. I promptly became familiar with the underside of the bus as I was gone within the week. Story 27. Oh, this happened to me many years ago. I was on the job a week at a law firm and had to ride with one of the female employees to the Up store. She was a terrible driver and almost wrecked multiple times. I posted on Facebook, 1 week on the job and my coworker is trying to kill me. Worst driver ever. The next day, I was called into my boss's office with the girl sitting there with an expressionless look on her face, and there was a printout of my post. It was awkward, and they fired me on the spot. All of my account information was also set to private, so they figured a way to check my activity. Story 28. Comcast fired me for a tweet I made. Here's what happened. Someone on my timeline posted an article about Comcast customer service. Someone replied to him saying, "Oh, wow, Comcast actually has customer service?" Working in customer service myself, I reply, from a personal account that is in no way connected with my job, with the tweet, "Yep, we do. We complain about management as much as you do." Comcast did not like that. Despite me having zero personal details on Twitter, they somehow still figured out it was me. I realized after that I had GPS auto-locate on for my tweets, so I suppose they could have looked through that data to figure out where I live. I checked. It's clear what house I live in whenever I tweet about being home. Anyway, the point is, they linked the account back to me and fired me for suggesting the employees are anything other than 100% happy all day at work. Seriously, that's almost what they said to me when they fired me. The best I can recall it was, "You said the employees aren't happy. We can't have people suggesting the employees are in any way unhappy with management. It makes us look bad as a company." Comcast has worked extremely hard to get the reputation it currently has, and things like this will make people see Comcast in a negative light, which is unacceptable. They also implied, though did not outright state, they're letting legal look at it to see if they have a libel case against me. It's been 5 months and I haven't heard a damn thing from them, so I assume not. The weirdest part was, the woman firing me seemed completely unaware the general public hates Comcast. Story 29. I threatened to pursue legal action and open a case with the local governing body that manages workers' rights. My employer told me to go pound sand, so I made good on my threat and won my case. I can't talk about specifics, but I worked as a lifeguard all through high school and university. One of my boneheaded coworkers thought it would be a good idea to film himself and a few of the other guards bananing around on the deck toward the end of a shift while a few people were still in the water. He posted it to Facebook, and anyone who appeared in the video or commented were let go. I had a case against my employer for several reasons. I did appear in the video, but I was off the clock and out of uniform, wearing street clothes, meaning that I was unidentifiable as a pool employee. I was visible only in the corner of the video. At no point was I seen in the frame taking part in the bananaing around. All of our dismissal letters had the wrong dates listed, which showed blatant negligence on our employer's part in properly investigating what had happened. Half of the people who were let go were not present at work on the day our dismissal letters claimed the video took place. This was in the earlier days of social media, so our employee manuals and disciplinary guidelines did not include any material regarding social media usage whatsoever. No patrons were hurt because of the guards' action. No negligence could be demonstrated on their part. Our employer did not follow its disciplinary guidelines in terms of warnings, suspensions, etc. All of us had clean records in regards to the incident. Story 30. I had a coworker who posted something about shooting up X-World TM and got reported. He had several coworkers on his Facebook and then fired. Another coworker is consistently posting hateful things about his job and his coworkers, but has not been fired yet, just reprimanded. On a sort of related note, I was suspended in the high school because a friend posted a threat via my Facebook. Story 31, lost it due to LinkedIn. Boss wanted to control what I had on it. I told him I was not comfortable with him trying to dictate my social account, and that's how I became unemployed. Story 32, I remember hearing a story about a young teacher in my province getting fired for posting vacation pictures to Facebook. Bikini, margaritas. A dip crap parent or teacher reported it, as any uptight group of PTA mothers would want to defend young eyes from that. Story 33, a little over a year ago, a bunch of employees at my old job got a rash. It wasn't contagious. Our blood was clean, and the doctors were confused. I took steroids from day one and had it for a little over 2 weeks, I believe. I didn't even have it as bad as a couple people. Everyone continued to work, even though some people had it in exposed areas. Employees were itching and talking about it, but management did nothing. Even the manager had it, but the owner didn't, so he didn't care to take any action. Well, I posted a picture of my rash on Reddit and gave absolutely no information on where I worked. It got to the front page and a coworker saw it and obviously recognized it. He showed people because he thought it was funny. A Redditor connected the dots to spell penis that one was passed around. But there was a coworker already out to get me, and she was close with our manager. So they told the owner that I had posted the picture on Facebook, which obviously would have been a big deal. So the manager told me to leave, but said she would have the owner meet with me. I knew as soon as I got home that she wasn't going to tell the owner to contact me. But I was already planning to quit the next weekend, so I didn't bother to meet with him. I'm not working at a place that allows the majority of their staff to get a rash and not investigate. I should probably add that this was a restaurant. Story 34. I once got pulled into the principal's office because of Tfue post. I had done a very unique prank to my school system. Someone saw me talking about it in the internet and accused me of bragging. They had already caught me, hence the Tfue. So at that point, they extended my ban from all technology and put me on a more intense probation. Story 35. A girl I know was a nurse at a hospital and got fired for posting things on Facebook such as, "So sleepy here in the ICU. Will someone please code and give me something exciting to do? Is that bad?" I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I have to ask. Is it like a Native American custom not to take a crap at home? Is it like an offense to their husbands to crap at home? Every time I go into a public bathroom and it smells like someone died in there, a native is washing their hands. Literally every single time. Like Duck Law off the Navajo tacos. The dumbest part about it was she was tagging the hospital she worked at in her posts. Story 36. I lost my job because I was upset at my boss, and I put it on Facebook. A customer threatened me, and instead of kicking me out, the boss bought him free shots. So I posted to Facebook that anyone who came and cussed me out would get a free shot in VP. Story 37. I once had to fire 5 employees in the same day because of a social media post. One of my employees, we'll call him Richard, came to me really worried because he had heard that another employee, Joey, had his new shoes stolen from the employee break room and was worried since he had heard that another employee, Eric, had taken them. When I asked him why, he hesitated and said that Eric had posted a picture of him wearing the same shoes on Instagram the day that Joey's went missing. Joey had come across the picture, and now Richard was worried that there would be a fight or argument because of how angry Joey was. I asked Richard to get me a copy of the photo, as I didn't want to speak to Eric without proof. He told me he didn't have an Instagram, so he wouldn't be able to show me the picture, but he knew Eric's username. He shared the username with me, and I checked it out. Sure enough, there he was wearing the exact shoes Joey had described, dated the same day they went missing. Now, this obviously isn't enough to be sure that he took them, but it was enough that I felt comfortable asking about it in an effort to get the shoes back. However, as I scrolled down a little, another photo caught my eye. It was Eric and 4 more of my employees, looking completely wasted in the employee break room with the bottle of Jack. They're obviously not allowed to drink on company property. The craziest part was, Richard was in the picture drinking with. This poor sap was trying to help prevent the other guys from fighting, so he directed me towards the Instagram page, not knowing, since he didn't have one, that there was something incriminating of him on there too. Eric apparently hadn't told anyone that he had put it up. They were all working that night, so we had to pull them in one directly after the other, for several hours straight, to fire them each. They all admitted to doing it, and it was a huge pain losing all that staff on the same day. The moral is, don't do stupid crap, and if you do, don't post it on the internet. Story 38, another not me but a coworker I knew post. A few years back, there was this woman who was the secretary to my employer's vice president. Sometimes she'd be asked to cover the president, CEO's secretary's position, if she, CEO's secretary, was out sick. She also managed the front receptionist and file room clerk position. She thought she was over anyone who had the title of administrative assistant, even if it was specifically for a particular department. Several times she tried to get me to do something outside of my department, when I had a million other things in my own department that I had to do. One time when I was doing something for her, my boss asked what I was doing. I explained to him, and he went off on the VP's secretary. She tried to say that the file clerk was busy with one thing, and the front desk receptionist was busy with another thing, but my immediate boss wouldn't hear of it. After that, I never heard one peep out of her. Now, back to what got her fired. She apparently had been fussed at over something by the CEO, or one of his daughters, who also work at the company, family-owned. She went to MySpace, back when it was popular, and posted a long rant about the CEO, his daughters, the CEO's secretary, the VP, and several other people. She posted about how things are handled at the company and other crap. She was friends with a few coworkers, and I think it was one of those coworkers who printed out the post and gave it to one of the daughters or the CEO. When I came into work, I found out she'd been fired. It was a huge relief for a lot of us. She'd been nothing but an idiot to a lot of people, thinking just because she oversaw the front desk and file room, she had power over all other administrative assistants, secretaries. After she was fired, I think the IT manager took over the front desk and file room, but he kept it pretty much just front desk and file room. He never bothered me about doing something extra like making up binders for a certification class to be taught there, or help set up for some outdoor event we were having, used to have one every year, or anything of that nature. Only time I've ever interacted with him was when it involved my computer or the department's printer. Story 39, Animal Services Officer here. A post had gone viral about somebody who bragged on Facebook about beating her cat when it scratched her. Turned out it was in our jurisdiction, and thanks to the power of fanatical animal rights activists, we were given the abuser's full name, address, telephone number, and even place of work. So because she admitted to being scratched by the cat, we had the grounds to seize it so it could undergo a 10-day quarantine period. Meanwhile, she's being issued death threats galore by the aforementioned fanatical animal rights activists. In fact, they're going so far as to threaten her family members too, who were otherwise totally uninvolved in the case. So what do I do once the cat's in our custody? I snap a picture of it while it's in its kennel back in the restricted quarantine area of the shelter, and I reply to one of the viral Facebook posts demanding action against the cat's owner with the picture, stating, "We have her now to ensure the fanatics that she's safe." Well, that absolutely and somehow unexpectedly blew up all over the place, and within the hour, a screenshot of my comment had gone viral too, so I took it down and hoped that would be that. I had the next day off, but I got a phone call from a cop local to the city I worked in. "Hi, is this my name?" "Yes." "Do you use the name my FB pseudonym on Facebook?" "Yes." Turns out the viral screenshot had made its way back to the cat's owner, and now she's threatening to sue me for slander and sue the shelter, city, for letting the picture from a restricted area leak. No lawsuits ended up being filed, but I called the shelter and gave them the heads up as to what happened. 2 days later, I was fired. I ended up suspending that FB account, which I had had since 2004, and started a new one. I was getting too many requests and notifications. As a result of all that, I spent the last 4 months unemployed and without the option of earning unemployment money due to the circumstance which led to my being fired. I'm employed at another shelter now, though, closer to home. They know about what happened at the other place. My former supervisor even wrote for me a letter of recommendation, which helped me nab this job. Story 40. I was let go from the nation's third largest insurance company for what were called offensive tweets. Apparently, someone with my similar name was tweeting vulgar things to comedy accounts, and they brought me into HR and terminated me. Yes, I sued for wrongful termination so I could finish getting my MBA. Story 41. We didn't lose the job, but a colleague and I were sent home. Years ago, I worked in a nightclub, and me and one of the other guys used to get the post-weekend cleaning shift. It meant going in on a Monday morning to straighten the place out. do some stock stuff, etc. Normally, we'd both work the Sunday night club shift, so we were only ever on a few hours sleep and as such, easily distracted. One day, we decided it'd be hilarious to TP one of the bar areas with Blue Roll. Once we were done, we took the pictures, posted them, and then tidied up. About 10 minutes later, the assistant manager, who was running the shift, comes storming up the stairs, goes mental at us, and sends us home telling us we were never getting the shift again. It really didn't help when my colleague pointed out that had he been watching the cameras rather than playing on FB, he probably would have been able to stop us. Anyway, the manager, who had been off that morning, thought it was hilarious and immediately reinstated us to the shift the following week and doing something stupid on a Monday, and taking a photo of it became an accepted part of the shift. Story 42. Didn't lose my job, but got a stern warning. Though what I posted was an honest mistake. I worked for a pipeline company that had to perform a specific type of river crossing with explosives. It was all approved by the regulator and stakeholder, but because of the sensitivity of the river and engos in the area, they wanted to keep the video of it on the DL. I was provided a copy of it and wanted to show my dad. I was about 23, and my dad also works in OG, so I thought he might find it interesting. I couldn't email it. Too big. So I uploaded it to what I thought was my private YouTube page and sent him a link. My YouTube page apparently wasn't set to private, and my boss got wind of it through a contractor. The name of my YouTube account very obviously pointed to me, and he got pretty pissed at me and told me to take it down. Luckily, I learned my lesson early in my career with minimal impact. I didn't get fired, and my boss got over it, about posting anything work-related on social media. I rarely post about my job or OG in general on my FB, and I'm very careful about what I post on here too. Story 43. Kid on my college baseball team got kicked off for tweeting song lyrics. My redneck coach read it out loud to the team and yelled that if the kid was dating his daughter, and he saw the kid tweet stuff like that, he would take him into the Ocala National Forest and bury him where nobody would ever find him. Then we had to run. Story 44. Not me, but a friend of mine. He and his girlfriend, at the time, both worked at Zeller's. He worked as the head cook in the in-store restaurant, and she worked as a server, hostess. After a few years of being together, they decided to get married. They announced their engagement proudly to everyone, and the branch manager of their Zellers gave them a massive discount on food and supplies for the wedding. The wedding preparation took nearly a year, but they pulled it off and had a great wedding. When they went to return to work, however, my friend's wife was promptly dismissed because husbands and wives aren't allowed to work in the same department. After months of lead-up to their wedding, the manager somehow forgot to inform the happy couple that getting married would mean one of them being let go. So my friend posted on his Facebook, Zellers has a policy where a husband and wife may not work in the same department. Because they did not tell me and my wife this policy, my wife has been fired. If you disagree with this policy, please contact Zellers. The next day, he was fired as well. Story 45. Not me, but a teacher got fired because she had been tagged in a photo on Facebook of her in a brewery. She'd gone on a tour while on vacation. She wasn't holding beer or anything, was just in the photo. Story 46. Got accused of stealing money from the staff locker room when I was actually going to the toilet. Flipped my crap straight to FB talking about throwing my manager out of the office window. Come in next day to a disciplinary with printouts of the status. Lucky they didn't read the comments. Story 47. Not me, but another former coworker. I don't know if you've ever worked at a GameStop, but you tend to know everyone at your GameStop and then also neighboring GameStops. They love to mix around employees when they need them at other stores. We had a girl who worked with us that is basically one of those, I play video games, and I want to be friends with everyone else who plays video games too. But I want to talk about how awesome I am because I play video games. Because of this, she was friends with every manager in our general area, about 5 GameStop. She was also the type of girl who repeatedly made fun of other girls for playing video games because she didn't like to share attention from guys. And I eventually had to delete her from Facebook because of the harassment she and her friends would dish out every time I mentioned liking a new game. Anyways, a bunch of games ended up getting stolen. We had some bins of just the discs and yellow sleeves at her store where she worked as an assistant manager, and she made a post along the lines of, "So, someone just stole Grand Theft Auto, Need for Speed, Steed Hoops, and some other games." Story 48. Someone I know posted something about a customer on her Facebook. Nothing revealing about the customer, just, don't you hate when your customers are too ducking dumb to RTFM? A friend of hers who worked for a competing business took a screenshot of that status, including the profile pic of her in her work uniform. This then found itself posted on the competitor's FB page with the text, "Don't worry guys, she doesn't work here." Anyway, she got fired. Story 49. I didn't get fired, but I did get written up for a post on Facebook. It was about 5 years ago at my old job. Spring just started, and it was the first day it was in the 60s. On lunch, I posted something like, "What a beautiful day. Can't wait to get out of work and enjoy it." Well, that didn't go over well. Funny thing is, I wasn't Facebook friends with anyone from work. They had one guy that would creep people's FB. This is when I learned about privacy settings. He told the boss and I got pulled in the office. They basically asked why I didn't like my job and why I couldn't wait to get out of work. I was like, it's the first warm day in what feels like 6 months. Of course I want to be outside. The reason I got written up was because I was on Facebook at work, even though I was on lunch. Bunch of a holes work. Story 50. I asked for an afternoon off because my best friend was having a cancer scare, and he was going to the hospital that afternoon for screening, so I wanted to be there for him. I was very open about why I wanted the time off, and my boss said I could take the time off as long as I took it unpaid instead of using it as vacation time. I went and met my friend at the hospital, but he was almost done. And since I was cleared for the day, I took him out for a drink. You know, like you do when someone thinks they have cancer. He checked us in on Facebook. I legitimately wasn't trying to hide anything. I wasn't trying to sneak around. So my boss calls me in the next morning and has my Facebook up on his monitor. I was friends with a coworker who had turned me in. I explained what had happened, and he still fired me on the spot. The aftermath was that when I filed for unemployment, we had to go to a hearing and explain the whole situation to a judge, who basically told him that he was insane. So there you go. Story 51. A mechanic lost their job for posting a hilariously modded truck with the exhaust pointed at and melting the fuel lines. A few weeks later, he made posts stating how he was found and fired. Most of it is deleted at this point. Yerk. The guy had to postpone his honeymoon. Story 52. I was fired from a nightclub security job for posting on Facebook. We had provided our bar for a large frat party. This group had tried reserving space at a number of other bars in my city because of their over-the-top wild antics. But my owners decided to let them come because, well, money. Flash forward to midnight. We had 3 tables and a couch broken and 2 female staff assaulted. After I had just broken up a fight, I took one of the involved to the kitchen to help him get cleaned up. He was not the aggressor, but since he had a broken nose, we had to call an ambulance. Story 53. I worked in a cinema, and someone posted to a local subreddit asking how to sneak their 18M girlfriend, 17F, into an 18-rated film. I suggested that the person with ID bought their ticket at the ticket office, red ticket, and the person without ID bought theirs at the automated ticket machine, blue ticket. Now the staff on the floor know to check ID for blue tickets, because red tickets would be checked at the time of sale. So if they then swapped tickets so that the person without ID had the red ticket, and the person with the blue ticket had ID, they should both be able to get in. Long story short, a customer saw the post, and then emailed the franchise I worked for, and since my city only has 2 cinemas in it, and I had posts of my tattoos in my profile history, they figured out who it was. I was asked to go to the office on Halloween night, made more enjoyable by the fact I was dressed as Solo with a Nerf gun. I then had to go to a disciplinary meeting and was told the result of the investigation was that I would be fired. A social media policy was shortly after enforced more strictly. Story 54. I didn't actually get fired because I just don't post about work, but I did once get written up, almost suspended, but my supervisor convinced management he needed me for the shifts that day once. I was scheduled to work a double, 16 hours, no breaks in between, 3 days in a row. Before I went in for my last double, I updated my Facebook saying, I am so tired, they literally tried to suspend me for that. Story 55. Story about hiring someone. I worked as a senior tech for a college help desk. Prior to interviews, we Google all candidates, mostly to see if their name pops up for anything interesting. We see his Facebook page and his profile picture is him doing a beer. Midway through the interview, we slide the picture out on the table and continue on like nothing is out of the ordinary. After we finish up questioning, we tell him that he should be more careful of what is on social media. 20 minutes later, we check again his Facebook is private. We ended up hiring him. Totally great employee too. Story 56. Not me, but a girl I went to college with, in the same program as me, interviewed for a position at the school I teach at. The principal loved her, but then we found tweets from her asking to borrow a gun to go to the interview. I teach at an urban inner-city school. It gets worse. She then went on to post a similar status on Facebook, something to the tune of, my ride to work will be all click, locking my doors. The principal printed out the tweets and confronted her with them at the final interview. She said they were meant as a joke, and the principal's stone face responded, I'm not laughing. She was blacklisted. She still, 4 years or so later, cannot get a teaching job. Story 57. One of our best agents got fired for... She was a single mom, fairly new to the job, but she was great at it. She posted up, I hate having to go work, but I'm blessed to have a job at company name. Bam, walked out the door. Story 58. I worked in the media industry and I got fired over Facebook profile information. My former boss looked me up on FB and discovered the work section, which stated basically I had a crafty job and a crafty income, amongst other things, on my not-so-serious profile. It was completely unrelated to the position, firm I was working in. He tried to strong-arm me to sign a termination agreement. I turned that offer down because it would have taken away all legal rights I had at the time. I live in Germany, and if I were an apprentice, you got special law protection. It's pretty much being irredeemable. I sued him, won the first instance. He appealed, and he won the second instance. It gathered quite some buzz in the media over here. Story 59. Not exactly the same thing, but I once had my college call me asking if I was still planning on attending. Apparently, they had looked at my Facebook and found a picture of me in some other college's. It was just one of my brother's shirts. I didn't think anything of it, but it was kind of freaky that they were going to those lengths. Story 60. A guy at my company got fired for posting a picture of weed, illegal here, sat on top of his company's security path, with his name and the company's name in plain view. Frankly, he was too stupid to have a job. Story 61. Not me. But a few years ago, I knew a girl doing social media for Entenmann's, the pastry people. Well, this was also around the time of the Casey Anthony trial, and the day the verdict was released, she tweeted, "Who's not guilty about eating all the tasty treats they want?" It seriously blew up, and she ended up getting fired a few days later. She was pretty upset about it for a while, but tells the story at parties now and gets that it's pretty funny. Story 62. Not me. But one of my good friends is a registered nurse. She posted on Facebook after working in the pediatric ward during practicum. All these screaming babies are good birth control. She was called in by HR at the hospital, and since she wasn't technically an employee, since she was a student nurse, she was just reprimanded verbally. A year later, when she was finished and had applied to the health region, they told her that her name was flagged for unprofessional, inappropriate behavior, and they would not be hiring her. Where we live, the health region covers the entire city and at least 45 minutes out all around the city. She ended up having to move to a different city to get a job. Story 63. Not myself, but a coworker lost his job for a Facebook post. He told his boss he had to leave work early one day due to his wife and child being involved in a serious car wreck about 3 hours away. The next day he called and said wife was in IQ and child was in serious condition. That night, boss saw on Facebook where employee's wife posted that they were at home watching movies and getting drunk. Called him in the next day, and employee refused, saying she was still in hospital. Boss told him he had printouts of the Facebook post and fired him over the phone. Story 64. My tutor, an aircraft engineer, told me this. Some guy was using a Genie forklift and ended up scratching the aircraft and caused 40,000 pounds of damage, but didn't tell anyone and tried to hide it. The base supervisors asked everyone, and they all denied it. But this guy tried to blame my tutor by saying he saw him using it. Nothing happened, because there was no CCTV evidence, but the insurance covered it. Then stupidly, a few months later, this guy posts on Facebook about how he got away with damaging a plane by blaming it on somebody else. Fired next day. Story 65. LUP for social media 1. Don't call in and then host cookout, garage sale, or PPV party 2. Racial, religious, or personal slander will be passed on in gossip 3. Assume someone from work will read everything you post eventually. Maybe not this job even, but the next higher paying one. 4. If you don't have a social media account, create one, never post, and only add friends who you would introduce a smoking hot out of your league. First date to if seen in public. It gives you a safe out in case someone tries to troll you, or you have the misfortune to share a name with a Satan incarnate. Story 66. Not me, but I took a class at my local community college called Foundations of Education. My teacher was telling us about horror stories with teachers and social media. The one that stood out was this girl, about 23 years old. Got fired from her first job because of a picture she was tagged in on Facebook. She had a clear Solo cup with a yellow, foamy liquid in it. She was at a party and made a goofy face in the picture. She got fired for drinking at a party, even though she was of age to do so. Story 67. We had a guy get fired where I work because he posted a video on Facebook of himself outside our plant wearing his uniform snorting. He was a bit of a clown, so he was just doing it to make people laugh. I think our union may have got him his job back a couple weeks later. Story 68. I worked at a small department store. Turns out, one of the employees had an anonymous hate blog about working there. They identified the managers and staff by initials, detailed exactly how he would torture each one, and also gave enough details about the store and themselves that it was simple to figure out who it was. They showed up for work to a police officer, who escorted them to the office. They collected their final check, and they were banned from that and all other locations. Story 69. In my wife's nursing school class, she had a classmate that was kicked out for taking pictures of patients and posting on Instagram. Some were with permission, some were babies, some were not with permission. She was very religious and asking her friends to pray for their healing and such. The thing is, even with the permission of the patients, it's a huge HIPAA violation. She was warned by classmates not to do it. She ignored them, then was found out. Story 70. I know someone who worked at a bank. A famous football player lost a bet and called in some type of money transfer to pay it off. And she posted it all over FB with his full name, amount he lost, how stupid he was for betting that much, etc. She also later posted my personal business on Facebook after I'd met her a total of 2 times. So guess that was pretty par for the first time post. So if this ends up responding weird, oops. Story 71. I managed to get a warning at work when a colleague was interviewed for a promotion and mentioned that investigation work was a strength. She then proceeded to prove her investigation skills by telling management I'd threatened to shoot the place up. My FB post had actually said, "Kids are winding me up. I've spoken to them and given a warning shot." She didn't get the job, and I successfully appealed the warning on the grounds of common sense. Story 72. I've heard of several teachers lose their jobs due to something they post online. Parents hold teachers to a higher standard than others. Low pay, little respect, and oh yeah, everything you do in public will be scrutinized. Can't understand why there is now a teacher shortage. Story 73. I'm enrolled for co-op through my school, and I was called in for a meeting in which I thought I was offered a job. Turns out I was blacklisted for 3 companies because I had tweeted a picture of me. Blackout drunk hammered to be funny, not even considering the consequences. Stupid college. And I lost out on all opportunities. She said I would have gotten one too. Lesson learned. Story 74. The example I was given during new hire orientation. Someone's fiance sent a bunch of flowers to her at work. She took a picture of them at her desk and uploaded them to Facebook. In the background were a couple clearly readable classified documents. Understandably, once HR found out, she got terminated. People who lost their job due to this crisis. What is your story? I'm a server. I haven't worked since the 14th, but was officially laid off on the 18th. Where I am, temporary layoff is only 60 days. If we are not back by then, we lose our jobs permanently. It couldn't have come at a worse time since we have new management, and there's been some murmurs about getting new staff. I was about to lose my apartment. Unrelated. But my landlord phoned me up to let me know that he is no longer making me leave and not to worry about April rent. He also gave me $150 to go buy groceries. He's a bro. I'm trying to get through to A, which is all online right now, but the site keeps crashing, so I'm unable to make a claim right now. Story 2. I'm sitting in a meeting right now, waiting to get fired. The VP is running late, so that's cool. They gave us basic info, but are talking to everyone individually, so who knows. Still, Story 3. I was laid off from my 5-year graphic design job, working for a screen printing and promotional products company. About half of our business involves schools, sports, and events. Obviously, none of that is happening currently, so our business has stagnated. They are going to try to operate with a skeleton crew for the next couple months. The hope is to bring everyone back eventually, but I'm not optimistic. Story 4. I got a call congratulating me on getting a job 2 days before a hiring freeze went into place at the university I applied to. I never saw my contract, nor do I have any work. Story 5. Just lost it about an hour ago. I'm a restaurant manager, and they called me and told me to turn in my keys by the end of the day. I'm in quarantine and can't. They are sending me a UPS box so I can send in my keys and told me to file for unemployment. Never expected this to happen to me. I'm in shock. I doubt what I'm going to do. Hey, thanks for the well wishes and advice. I live in NJ, and I already filed last night. Everyone else in my shoes read these comments. On top of being really sick, it was a kick to the stomach, but we will get through it. Story 6. If you're in the UK, the major supermarkets are on a recruitment drive with a fast turnaround of getting people in position. I know this isn't a story about losing a job, but hopefully this helps someone coming to this thread. Story 7. I haven't been laid off, but I answer for the National Death Prevention Lifeline, and we are having so many calls where someone is thinking about hitting themselves because they were laid off. This virus is causing so much damage, and there's never enough resources. Story 8. Construction. The whole construction site was laid off, and with the way things are going, the company owner thinks it'll be at least a year before they consider hiring me back. Started 3 months ago, and that's at least 50 other people affected, just for this site. The company had several other sites that they laid off employees too. I'm just lucky I'm still living with my parents, and Dad works as online it for the general public, so he's nice and busy. Edit, sign, everyone and their dog is asking. I'm in Canada, Alberta. The site I was on was shut down by the owner. Beyond that, I don't know. Story 9. Not me, but my wife has been told that basically, we'll call you if we need you. And they don't really need anyone TBH. She hasn't worked a minute since the 13th. And my sister was a bartender at an arcade, so she's totally ducked. She's been laid off with the promise of reinstatement when they reopen. Story 10. I was laid off indefinitely from 2 different hourly paying line cooking jobs on Monday, 50 hours combined week. I helped clean out one of the restaurants Wednesday. We discarded a lot of stuff. I helped clean out all of the coolers and throw away a lot of prepped food that people couldn't take home. Employees were encouraged to take what they wanted. Produce, dairy, meat, etc. The place is almost completely empty. It's surreal. My spouse was laid off indefinitely Wednesday. She manages a restaurant and is salaried benefits, 50 hours a week. She was told that management will not be paid until the place reopens. Our family currently has no work or income. We have a young child. These are very uncertain times. Story 11. My experience is pretty unique. In a nutshell, my wife and I live in New Zealand and had planned a 2-year working visa in Toronto. We were supposed to leave in April, so we had obviously already handed in our notices of resignation to our bosses. Long story short, Canada shut, It's Borders, and my boss has already hired my replacement. As a side note, they shut the Borders on my birthday. Story 12. I'm a substitute teacher. If you are aware that most schools are closing if they haven't already, then that should explain why all subs are now effectively unemployed. It's unlikely that schools will return during this situation, so yes, thousands of people are out of work just from that alone. Subs don't make salary, so any employee who is hourly or paid by day now needs to scramble. Story 13. I worked at Hyatt. I was hired as an intern fresh out of college for a year. Most of Hyatt's interns were actually internationals from Europe. Hyatt paid us minimum wage, which is crazy once you learn how expensive NYC is. 2 months ago, they recently hired a guy from the Netherlands, and just 2 weeks ago, another girl also from the Netherlands have just moved to New York City for this internship and had moved to her apartment just last week. 2 days ago, HR called us for a meeting and said, effective Monday, we were no longer employed by Hyatt. They refused to pay us any of our sick or personal days, which I had 7 days. For the interns that have recently moved to NYC, HR basically said you're on your own, not our problem. Nothing we can do to help. That's all. Being laid off is one thing, but having the HR director tell us that they were not intending in paying any of our sick days or personal days was a slap in the face and a massive banana move. I'd intended to work till Saturday, which was my last scheduled day. Since they were not paying my sick days, I just called off my last 3 days, so I can at least get 3 sick days paid. Hyatt's saying is, we care for people so they can be their best. They really showed their true colors. And I would never work for Hyatt or stay in any of their property for as long as I live. Edit, didn't expect this to blow up. Just a few things to mention. I'm not trying to cause a riot of any sort. I'm getting paid my accrued vacation only, as some have mentioned. NY doesn't require for sick days to be paid, so I've come to terms with that. Also, this was just my experience. I'm not discouraging the use of Hyatt. Don't. Story 14. I haven't lost my job, but my small software company instituted 30% pay cut across the board. They say it'll be reevaluated every month. Clients keep canceling or postponing projects. So I'm good this month, but could easily lose it next month. I'm just happy they decided to cut pay instead of fire 30% of the workforce, so everyone can keep their health coverage. That, and I'm not sure I wouldn't have been part of that 30%. Story 15. My job as a barista was shut down for safety and because nobody is coming in anyway. And my summer job, teaching kids how to swim at a sleepaway camp, is canceled because the camp decided not to open. While I'm not in danger of losing my house or starving, I'm now unable to afford to continue going to college next semester. Story 16. I'm a nurse. Had a kidney transplant 7 months ago. Returned to work 4 months ago. Left work on Monday and haven't been back since. A paycheck isn't worth risking my best friend's gift. Story 17. My husband got laid off on Tuesday. He works about 3 minutes down the road from my work. He showed up at my work with tears in his eyes, apologizing to me for not doing good enough to be kept. He works at a car dealership as an auto technician, where they let go of 4 techs that day cause of decreasing business. They're letting go of more people this Saturday. My brother is a mechanic there and is scared to lose his job too. They told my husband that when business picks back up, they might call and ask him to come work for them again. Thankfully, I work in the lab of a hospital, so my job is pretty secure. I keep telling my husband that we'll get through it, but I know it's taking a toll on him. Story 18. I'm a housekeeper at a hotel. Last week, they cut our hours from 40 to 32. I was just informed that tomorrow they are shutting down the hotel. Front desk, sales team, and bartenders are being laid off for the time being. Housekeeping will now work 24 hours a week for 2 weeks to deep clean the hotel, but who knows after that? Story 19. I just finished my training as a flight attendant for a major European airline. It's been a dream of mine, and I have been putting my love and energy into this training for the past months. I'm in Cancun right now, and it's bittersweet because it's absolutely beautiful here. But at the same time, this was my last training flight. I'm now a fully trained flight attendant, and yet no one knows when me and my other new colleagues will actually be getting our work contract since the airline industry is suffering a lot right. I think I will cry when landing back in Frankfurt, because I don't know when will be my next flight. But I will put on a brave face and genuine smile for our passenger. At least I will do my best. Story 20. Last hired, first fired. The owner loves me, but she couldn't keep us all on, so it was only fair. My side gig is dog walking, which is ducking slow BC no one's leaving their houses. God bless the biddy whose dogs I walk every. Story 21. I was a bartender. The bars and restaurants were shut down. I was actually relieved because, not going to lie, I was afraid of dealing with so many people and all the glasses. People would have just kept coming too if the state hadn't shut us down. Story 22. My girlfriend works for Marriott and basically lost her job. They told her they'll call her when they need the staff again. She tried to apply for unemployment and was denied because Marriott has her as an employee who works 0 hours. So for the time being, I'm taking over her financial responsibilities. Story 23. Manager at a movie theater. I already saw it coming, so it wasn't that shocking to hear. We were only seeing about 200 people a weekday, down from our average of 900. Got called in by the GM, and we were told that we were closing indefinitely. It's looking like 12 weeks. I'm fortunate enough to have enough money saved that it isn't really an issue for me, but it really upset me knowing that a lot of the people who work in the building have no other source of income and SC by with their paycheck. Fingers crossed it's 6 weeks, maybe less. Story 24. Classical musician here. Every orchestra had to cancel concerts for the next 8 weeks, unsure if any of the concerts will be rescheduled. Many orchestras are waiting to see if the Act of God clause will be applied. If that is the case, musicians will not be paid. Most summer orchestras are still programmed, but there is high chance will be shut down as well. Edit, in the USA. Story 25. My mom works in vacation rentals doing housekeeping. She's 61, diabetic, and has COPD, and lives in a state that has mandatory shutdown of all non-essential businesses. When she was informed they'd be laying people off, but also staying open, she told them she's afraid of getting coronavirus, and they laid her off so she could collect unemployment and continue to pay her bills while staying home safe. Story 26. Wife and I both work in the restaurant industry, both laid off unpaid indefinitely. She's a type 1, insulin-dependent diabetic, and we've got 2 young kids. We have no idea what we are going to do. Insulin and supplies were already killing us. The thought of not being able to get her insulin is horrifying. Story 27. The manager at a large hotel. GM and HR gave me a list of employees to call and inform them that they would all be furloughed. It was the hardest thing I've had to do in my life. I had to stop halfway through the list just to sit in my office and cry. I had to encourage grown men and women that everything would work out and be okay when I had no idea myself if or when it would be. I went to work this morning, worked my normal 10 hours. Then I was laid off at the end of the day. I cried again on the way home. Story 28. Didn't lose my job, but I was in the middle of searching for a new one. Obviously now it's getting next to impossible to find a job, and I'm not eligible for EI. Story 29. I was supposed to see my doctor yesterday, hoping to be cleared to go back to work. I had rotator cuff surgery 2 months ago. Appointment was canceled, so I can't go back without the paperwork. Super sucks because I have $100 to my name. Story 30. Didn't lose my job because of this, but I've been between jobs for a good few months before. It's been a terrible experience trying to get interviews or processes to move forward because of everything going on. Makes me worried about how much longer it'll be. Story 31. I was a server looking for a new job before this all began. I got a job secured at the zoo. An amazing dream job for me and my personality. But the day before I started at the zoo, they shut it down for the pandemic fears. Then they shut down my serving job too. Story 32. I'd been unemployed for over 2 months with countless applications and rejection. I finally landed a job at a record storing facility. Good hours, good pay. Technically, it was a casual job, but it was essentially full-time. There was work for me for over a year. The company whose records I was to be taking care of canceled the job, and I was back out of work after 5.5 days. Story 33. I am ducked. I'm American, but live in Italy. Northern Italy, specifically. Worked for the last 5 years for a tech startup that is heavily dependent on renting apartments and people traveling abroad in Europe for revenue. Though my job in the company was totally back-end. I was part of the first wave of employees and really liked my job. We were funded mostly by Silicon Valley investors. The company had already decided our jobs were to be automated slowly and painfully. And I was already starting to look for a new job, but the process just got sped up due to the crisis, and we all got the red slip on Monday. My husband is a taxi driver, and he hasn't worked in almost 3 weeks. We don't know when he'll be able to work again. I don't know when I'll even be able to get another job interview. We have a 3-month emergency fund that I've built up, thankfully, and no CC debt, but I'm terrified for the future. We're both in our 30s and got ducked in 2008 when we graduated into that recession. Now, I'm worried I'll never own a home and never have kids. I don't know how any of that will be possible. I feel hopeless. I'm going to fight my way out of this whichever way I can, but I'm honestly feeling defeated, and I'm scared we're going to get sick eventually. Or one of our family members here in Italy will get sick, or one of my family members in the US will get sick, and I'll be unable to fly back to be there. We had an increase of around 4,450 cases and 427 more deaths in Italy today. I feel like a real a-hole for even worrying about my finances in the face of this tragedy here, but I'm terrified for what's next selfishly. And I have no idea how I'm going to pay for my student loan going forward. It's literally hit me. Just duck, guys. Story 34. My last day at my old job was Thursday, started a new job Friday. All my old friends and coworkers are laid off Sunday, and I have this guilt I can't shake. Story 35. Wife and I both work at major casinos on the Las Vegas Strip. Both of us are out of work. All casinos in Las Vegas are closed. Only security and a few other key positions are still employed. Casinos are the largest employers in the state of Nevada. I'm sure this is going to devastate the local economy. Story 36. I had the audacity to start a new job on January 6th, last to arrive first to be shown the door. Ain't nobody damn hiring right now, so I gotta find out which bills I can skip. Everything is great. Story 37. I got laid off today. I worked in art studio, There were only a few of us and my boss owns the business. As it's a small business, she just couldn't afford to keep me employed anymore. Business just stopped. Normally, we would have 10 orders a day. Today, we had 1. It sucks, but I understand completely, and she's the nicest boss. I live in the UK, and although the government are promising loans for small businesses, it's not helping, realistic. By that, I mean the help is going to come too late. I really hope her business manages to get through the next few months. It's going to be a difficult few months for a lot of us. I'm lucky I've got some savings and still live at home, so it could be so much worse. Story 38. I'm self-employed, so not technically lost my job, but all my clients have canceled because I'm a tailor and who needs clothes when everyone's home isolating. Was even in the middle of making one lady's wedding dress, and she just forgot to tell me she's buggered off out of the country and not going to get paid. Hope this all blows over soon. Story 39. I work in a hotel. Last week, our occupancy dropped to the 20s, and most of the frontline duties were taken over by upper management, and our line staff was laid off or had shifts reduced to 1 or 2. This week, our occupancy dropped to less than 10%. Right after the hotel CEOs met with Trump and announced that they were shutting hotels down, my company called and laid off sales, chef, banquets manager, and anyone else they could. That is when I was laid off. My manager told me he thinks they will close the hotel next week and lay everyone else off. It should be noted that they didn't lay off anyone in the corporate office because our company is all about nepotism, and we shouldn't expect our company photographer or company newsletter writer to be without a job. I do understand that we can't run empty hotels, but I thought the layoffs should be more fairly distributed. The upside is that my boss felt so bad about laying me off that he gave me a garbage bag filled with toilet paper as a parting gift. I love that guy. Story 40. I do web development and management. My company makes fabric decor for events and festivals. You know, the things that nobody's allowed to do right now. I've seen the company soar in the time I've been there. January was our best month ever, pulling in more than 3 times the amount the place was pulling in the month I was hired a few years back. We had twice as many requests for quotes on new projects in February as we did in December. We were crushing our records left and right. And then it was all vaporized in the span of a couple weeks as one festival after another was canceled and event throwers canceled their orders for our products. I was laid off Monday, along with the marketing agent, sales manager, and several members of production. We've been told that when things are looking up again, we'll be the first people called back, but that's going to be a while. The CEO is hoping for May. I'm thinking July is more realistic. I'm signed up for unemployment and I'll be looking for work because you have to in order to collect unemployment benefits. And I have a pretty good balance in my savings account. I'll be okay for a few months, although I did just have to postpone a refinance on my house. But I'm scared and anxious, and I'm grieving. I love my job. I really enjoy the work. I'm proud of what we do. I like my coworkers and I love my team. Story 41. I worked at a specialty custom cake shop. My bosses are a brother and sister that own the business. They have been terrified of pandemic since it started in January and have been throwing around the idea of closing ever since then. When all the employees would panic and ask what would happen to us, if you closed, they would just say, "Don't worry about it. We will figure it out." Last week, we got an email giving us 6 days notice that we will be closed for the following month with partial pay. By the time we reached the final day, we would be open before the month of closing. They told us that we were actually being laid off. The partial pay for the month would be severance, and they are unsure of when they will open. They act like this is only temporary, but I know that they are refusing custom cake orders all the way until August. They also make no promises to be able to hire us back after they reopen later this year since they may not be able to afford it. Story 42. I'm a bartender. I wasn't working Saturday or Sunday, but was watching other places post on social media that they'd be closing for the time being. On Monday, a few hours before I was scheduled to go in, the city declared that sit-in restaurants should only serve takeout and that bars should close. So I spent a while with the owner packing up all the alcohol before we were all laid off in order that we could start collecting AI. I was a regular there for years before I started working there after finding it in its first week open. And it's been open almost as long as I've lived in this neighborhood. I'm the longest tenured bartender at this point. It's really ducked up to think about the place potentially not coming back. Story 43. We deliver Amazon their delivery vans. We deliver to Amazon warehouses from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, and the DC area. I was nervous about continuing traveling from city to city and crammed in a minivan with 6 guys to come back home. I stopped working Tuesday, and today I feel sick, sore throat, very tired, and hoping it's just allergies. Story 44. Pandemic, price of oil dropping like a rock. It's bad time to be a welder in Alberta. If it was just the virus, things would be all right. But the company got hit with multiple things all within a short time frame. So nothing to do but Reddit, YouTube, Call of Duty, and walk the dog. All while getting back some of the money I gave the government over the last few years. Story 45. Had been unemployed for nearly 2 years due to medical problems. Finally got cleared to go back. It was a long, hard-fought road. Applied, got an interview, crushed the interview, Offered the job on the spot. Took it. 2 days later, they took the offer back. Industry is getting crushed. Timing so crappy it hurts. Story 46. I'm a hiking guide in a national park. All of my backpacking trips and day hikes have been canceled until the end of April. Good thing I decided to wait to buy that used car. Story 47. Washington State doesn't require PTO time to be paid out, so it's cheaper to fire employees and zero out their PTO time and then rehire them later than it is to keep us. I haven't been let go yet, but all 9 of the people that work for me, including one guy that had 12 weeks of PTO accrued and got nothing, have been let go. Our office in K has been letting people take PTO for years, since it's a liability on the books, since Key A required unused PTO to be paid out. It doesn't seem like a big difference in the law, but it is in practice. Story 48. I work for a ski resort in Colorado. Practically all employees have been laid off and are now stranded in a ski town with little other employment. Many have no way to get themselves home due to the desperate financial situation. Story 49. My mom and I lost both of our jobs at roughly the same time. We were in the process of looking for and buying a house, but now, with no income, we can't. We're also getting kicked out of the house we're renting because the landlords are refurbishing, and with this virus going around, it's not the best time to move. Story 50. I worked with a company that did environmental work with concerts and musicians. Just started the job too, and was really excited to start what I thought was my dream job. I got laid off because of the virus. Job hunting during the quarantine is really difficult, and I would like to use my environmental science degree for something useful. Story 51. Worked for a hospitality company, sous chef at a school residence for international students. Emptied out Friday aside from 6 students. Had a little dinner party Saturday. Moved all the product we could from cold storage to other locations and donated what we couldn't, minus our boss cooking us a nice dinner that night. Applied at the local hospital this morning, hoping to get in there. We haven't been hit hard yet, Ontario. But if it does, I'd rather be working and serving those who need it, those who are working to help than sitting around at home. I'm a 28-year-old, fairly healthy guy who lives on his own. My GF isn't too happy, but it's better than sitting on my ass and doing nothing. I've slept on a sack of potatoes for a weekend event. Better to do something than nothing. Story 52. I'm a server at a local Asian restaurant in the South, so you can imagine how it's been. Ever since the virus started, we've been dead. I never made more than $50 on a 9-hour shift this past month, and I've worked plenty. Finally, we had one day where we had maybe less than 5 tables come in who were regulars, and we decided we couldn't stay open anymore. I tried applying to a few other restaurants, one being right next to my current job so I could hopefully work both. But they had to cancel my interview because they weren't making enough money to hire. It was really hard for the owner to close down, and he hated how much people assumed things about the restaurant due to it being Asian food. We were talking a few days before we closed, and he asked me why we weren't getting any customers, and I told him I think it was due to the virus and us being an Asian restaurant. It was funny hearing my misty, silent Chinese boss stare out the window and say, "That's ducked." I didn't lose my job, but am temporarily laid off until further notice. Story 53. I own an escape room. We have made negative revenue this week because of refunding cancellations and no new bookings. We were just coming out of a rough patch and finally showing some profits before this hit. My business bank account is almost depleted. I frankly don't think the business is going to survive. Story 54. Was working as hourly for a company which deals with the shows in Vegas. I read the news about all the shows stopping in Vegas. We were out of work Monday until who knows when. I was the only one with income in the family. I have a small business, but with everyone out of work, who knows what's going to happen. I've been broke before, but this is different. Story 55. I own a business with 20 staff and told them that no one is getting laid off because we always make sure to have savings, care more about the team than clawing back profits, love working together, are pivoting our business to get new customers, believe we will come out stronger. Layoffs are sometimes necessary, but companies need to do their best to take care of their own. Companies are made up of awesome people. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. Story 56. I lost my job on March 13th, a day after my birthday. I work in a planetarium on a college campus delivering lectures that I make about astronomy and physics. As we got closer and closer to shut down, we began losing shows. Many shows are field trips from K-12 schools, and on Friday, we were told to cancel our last remaining public showings. I'm terrified now about what I'm going to do financially, and I'm even more worried about the consequences of the decisions I will have to make. Not only do I work at the college, but I also attend classes there as well to study astronomy and physics. My big concern now stems from a little backstory, so here we go. I left my old job in retail almost a year ago to the day after trying to work up the courage to change my life for years. I decided to go back to school to change my life. And because of this decision, I was able to land basically my dream job at the planetarium. I have been nothing but happy this last year. That is until recently when I was laid off because of pandemic shutdowns. Now my decision is to try and weather the storm and wait until I can go back to work or get a job in retail again. I have recent enough managerial experience that would make this pretty easy to pay the bills. This worries me because it feels like the opposite of progress, and I'm worried I won't be able to get back to school when the pandemic ends. Don't really know what I'm going to do, but I have a couple side hustles that might pan out enough to get me and my family through this. Story 57 should have started on Monday. I'm working in the field of archaeology and heritage preservation. I got a call that they just won't hand me out the contract to sign it, and I can do that when the crisis is over. I moved states for this job. Story 58. I do camera work, mostly reality TV. Our entire industry is shut down. I had just finished filming Deadliest Catch and returned to real life to sleep. I worked 40-hour days, often with 2-hour naps, but no real schedule, just go. So recovery takes a bit after that one, and climb for a bit. Then everything I had lined up, and everything all of my friends are working on, went away basically overnight. Whenever you can, just turn the TV on to Discovery so when this all blows over, I can get back to frolicking in Alaska, or the jungles. Side note, I finally had time to get treated for the parasite I picked up in Belize on Naked and Afraid. I named him Rupert and thought I killed him climbing, but it turned out I was wrong. Goodbye, Rupert. You'll be missed. Story 59. I'm a line cook in Las Vegas, and by. I was called on Saturday by my chef telling me Sunday would be my last day of service until further notice. The entire casino industry has been forced to close until further notice. A lot of my brothers and sisters in the hospitality industry are hurting right now. I don't know what to do because honestly, no one is hiring. The grocery stores are sure, but everyone has the same idea of applying to them. Now we have a 30-day quarantine in our state, and they haven't moved to freeze rent and mortgage payments for the time being. I've filed for unemployment, and at this point, all I can do is hope that this will fix itself in the next 3 weeks. As a cook, I always thought I'd never be out of a job. People always need to eat. It's been an eye-opening experience for me. Story 60. Both boyfriend and I work in the film industry. The whole industry has been shut down in Vancouver, and we are not being told when productions will come back or start up again. Showed up to work on the 13th, was told to go home, and haven't been back since. I'm preparing myself for 3 months before I can even entertain the idea of going back to work. Story 61. I'm a professional musician, a drummer for 2 working bar cover bands, a well-paid church gig, and a symphony orchestra. We've been told that all gigs and shows are canceled indefinitely and all church services suspended. Wife and I have money saved and will be okay, but I have bandmates in dire straits right now. Story 62. Not me, but my dad. He works in the exhibition industry, setting up stands for shows, events, and conferences. But now with bans on public gatherings, he's out of the job indefinitely. He was the sole earner in our house as well, and we only have enough rent money for the next month. Scary times ahead. Story 63. Not my story, but my boyfriend's best friend is a singer. He sings at restaurant, bars, but they've been closing down, and people haven't been going out to these places, so he can't do his gigs anymore. It's his source of income, so I know he's taking a hit. Story 64. I work for an eye doctor, and they just had a really slow couple months after Christmas and had already cut down our hours. The doctor canceled all appointments and is essentially closed down. She told us she has business interruption insurance, which she originally thought would cover us all. But after several days of back and forth with them, it's totally still unclear if we will be covered and paid, in which case she will lay us all off and we must collect unemployment. I am hoping to know as soon as possible so I can file for it ASAP. I also filed for my tax refund 5 weeks ago, and it's still not come, so I'm a little concerned, actually really concerned, but I know there's nothing I can do. I'm hopeful I will be called back to my job after this, but can't be sure. Story 65. My fiancé is a freelance sound engineer. He's not going to be working for the foreseeable future. Most of the big AV companies in our city have shut up shop. Thankfully, it looks like my job is secure for now, software. But we're going to move to a smaller place and do some serious belt tightening. Story 66. I threw away a decent salary and a stable but mediocre life just over a year ago to try and achieve something worthwhile and interesting for myself. I was guided toward a 1-year course in creative advertising, which seemed really interesting. So I sold off most of my worldly possessions to get enough cash to move to the opposite end of the country with my partner to begin study. I got really into it. The course was really well connected with industry, and I finished the course strongly with amazing prospects. I took the most prestigious offer, which was also the lowest paying because prestige, I guess, and began my internship at a world-leading agency. That was 6 weeks ago. My partner and I separated because we were growing apart, and on Monday I moved my belongings into a complete crap hole of a flat populated by shirtless weirdos. The next day, my company let go of all their temporary and contract staff. My career's gone, and I'm all alone in a disgusting house with no friends. Story 67. I moved home recently and work in the restaurant, bar industry. All job opportunities have vanished, which is especially crafty since this is a high season where I live. I'm lucky to have my family to help support me until things settle down. Please support and donate to charities for people who will be struggling over the next few months. Story 68. I was in sales trying to get businesses to send employees to public workshops at hotels. We normally had 60 people at each workshop. Not the hottest thing out there now due to pandemic, so they fired 20 people yesterday and kept only the top 5 guys. They said they will rehire us again after business resumes normally. Story 69. I'm a waiter. I haven't lost my job, but lost 25% of my hours next. I'm expecting it to get worse as time goes on. We've been told nothing from head office about what happens if there's a lockdown. As I'm paid hourly, the assumption is I won't get paid. The Prime Minister was asked today what happens to staff losing hours or being made redundant, and his response was that he was looking after the companies, and he hopes the companies will do the same for their workers. Very reassuring. Story 70. I am lucky enough to have work from home currently, but if anyone in Utah is seeking employment due to this, please let me know. I currently am working for a recruiting staffing firm in SLC and have clients looking for sales reps, desperately needing sales reps with some experience, licensed insurance agents, and a myriad of other things from accounting clerks, some WFH CSRs, and the like who have committed to hiring candidates and training them from home, remotely as long as they can transition back to in office once it is safe to do so. We too are all working from home to ensure our safety and health, so all interviews are being conducted via video chat or phone. If I can help, please reach out. Story 71. We sold our house, packed up our stuff and our 2 young daughters, and moved our family to the Bay Area in California for my husband's new job in SF. That was January 25th. He lost his job on Monday as soon as they announced the shelter-in-place order. We left behind our families, friends, home, everything for this job. We don't know what we're going to do. Thankfully, we have savings from selling our house while he looks for a job. We just don't know who, if anyone, will be hiring anytime soon. I want to buy a school bus and convert it to an RV and go live in the mountains. I have yet to get my husband and our daughters on board with that plan, though. Story 72. Live theater sound professional in NYC. Worked full-time at a show called Sleep No More for 7 years. On Friday, March 6th, they laid off at least half the staff, but promised us our jobs were safe and we weren't closing. We canceled a lot of bands that normally play after the show. Then on Thursday, March 12th, the city announced Broadway would close, and the management made the decision that that night would be put final show. The performers made the call that they would be more comfortable if we didn't have an audience, since it is an immersive, intimate show with a lot of contact. We had a final party and some drinks and said goodbye. The next day, we were informed the show would be closed until April 12th, when Broadway would reopen. Then, on Sunday, March 15th, we were informed that the entire staff was terminated, praying my landlord will give us some slack. But I literally lost 100% of my income. I live paycheck to paycheck with no savings. I'm scared, already on day 6 of quarantine. Story 73. So I work for a charter school, and I was super afraid that this was it for us. But the CEO came out and said that we are going to support the kids remotely, run online classes, and everyone will be getting paid regardless if you can actually do your job or not. So the teachers are still teaching. The janitors just chill at home and everyone is paid for. My respect went up a lot for them. Story 74. My childcare center closed last Friday and my wife's center closed yesterday. Company plans on staying closed until April 26th. They are paying us for the first 2 weeks. Story 75. I just landed my first job as a roadie, stagehand right before the virus hit England. My friend had given me an in by drafting me as a last-minute replacement for staff that had canceled one day. I'd only done 2 shifts, one filling for the aforementioned unavailable staff, and the next after asking about more regular employment. After my second shift, I asked who to talk to about getting into the books and officially into employment. I emailed the right people and was told I'd be paid, but not to worry about a timesheet. I asked if I'd get more work in an email sent on the day of the outbreak in the UK. Now, all the gigs are being canceled, and I'm not getting replies to my emails from the higher-ups anymore. A friend of mine, who's been with the company for a year or so, told me that they had emailed her to let her know there's nothing coming up in the next month. I don't know whether I'm employed or not, but something tells me I'll not be receiving any more emails from that company. Story 76. This is what makes this a crisis. Previous financial crashes seem to focus on billions being wiped off the stock market, which doesn't really affect the majority of workers, at least immediately. This has manifested itself so quickly and so brutally by completely removing any requirement for a whole host of jobs. People are feeling it at all rungs of the ladder. Not just some arsehole banker who has had his shares wiped out overnight. The worst part is, this is only just the beginning. Story 77. I'm an escort, which is a pretty big no-go while people are social distancing. All the bars in my state closed on Tuesday, and that same day, I went to a hiring event at the grocery store near me and walked out with a job. I was scared because as a stripper, I don't qualify for unemployment, and my boyfriend also works in the service industry, and his hours are getting cut. I also got a job with the census that was supposed to start on the 24th, but that got postponed. Overall, I'm kind of excited to work at the grocery store. I was kind of looking for a part-time job anyways before this all started. And maybe it will be a good way to transition out of stripping. Story 78. I was a security guard for a nightclub, which is obviously closed for now. But I have a really cool boss. He's given all his employees the time off while still being paid because the dude's super insane rich, and he looks after everyone. Everyone is guaranteed their old position when we return. Thanks, Gary, you absolute legend, you. Story 79. I scored my dream job last May, and after 3 months, I was let go due to delays in a project I was directly involved in. My girlfriend and I had just moved in together, and my monthly living cost was based off the higher salary from the job I had lost. After several months of surviving by credit cards, job hunting, picking up odd jobs to make ends meet, something's working 3 different jobs in a single day, I finally found a new company I was excited to work. After weeks of interviewing, I started last week. On Friday, we were all put on mandatory work from home. I was the only one let go. To make it worse, my girlfriend works in hospitality, and she's also out of work too. Crap sucks, man. Story 80. You hear people saying all the time now, damn, sports aren't on. What am I gonna watch? Well, that's my job. I run camera for all the local sports in Colorado. We are all contractors, and none of us are getting paid. You hear a bunch of teams offering money to the hourly employees, which is great, but that doesn't include the people who actually get the game on the air for people at home to watch. Being out of work for a month can be devastating on our livelihoods, as some of the lower positions could have only been on 1 or 2 shows before this crisis happened. Really rooting for a stimulus of some sort to come through. Story 81. After enduring almost a year of unemployment, then 2 jobs back-to-back where I had managers that both bullied me and made fun of me in front of the entire office, I finally landed my dream job in animation where I had colleagues that valued me and were willing to teach me more skills. Not even a week after I started the job, I got made redundant. I'm so heartbroken. I never thought I'd ever work in a creative field, and the moment I finally do, gone, just like that. I don't even feel like working anymore. I'd rather just stay in bed and ignore people. Story 82. I'm a substitute teacher, and I had a few sub-assignments lined up for the next month. All are canceled, and I DK if there will even be school year to finish. I had to apply for unemployment since I have no means of making a living if schools end their year. Story 83. I live paycheck to paycheck. Finally got my life somewhat stable over the last year as a bartender. I find out a couple days ago my only job is closing for the foreseeable future. I can't afford food or rent this month and don't have health care. Story 84. I lost my job in China, moved back home, and crap hit the fan here. Made it through my quarantine, and now nowhere is hiring. My husband and I are now both without jobs. Story 85. Student lab assistant at my university. Didn't necessarily lose my job. They'll probably bring me back when campus reopens, but for at least a couple months, I'll be unemployed. Story 86. My mother works in an office for a company that ships party products. Because of the crisis, no one is ordering anything, and the business has come to a complete stop. She's been told, "We'll call you if we need you," and I'm really worried how long she'll be laid off for. The worst part is that she thinks she'll be called back in about a week or so, but my dad and I don't want to tell her what might actually happen because we don't want to break her heart. It's a tough reality that we're facing this pandemic. Story 87. I quit my last job, crafty barely above minimum wage job, to take a month off and relax because I got 2 job offers from fairly decent careers. First choice said training was canceled, and second choice soon after said the same. So now I work part-time at a grocery store. Story 88. In the middle of simulator training at the airlines and told to go home. Now I'm home. My old job is contracting and likely wouldn't be a good option even if they took me back, so I'm looking at alternatives. Story 89. I was looking for a job after college for a solid year. Finally broke down and got one at a grocery chain doing online orders and hated it for a year. About a year ago, I got hired and could use my degree with, and was happy and getting paid well. I was able to pay my rent and my girlfriend's while she was in school. Got laid off 2 days ago, with no indication as to whether I'll have a job when this is over and trying to figure out how I'll support us. Story 90. Server in NYC. Restaurants are shut down except for takeout and deliveries. I've been out of a job for about a week, and my last paycheck hit today via direct deposit, which was about $300 because of the few days I worked. Applied for unemployment, but the site keeps crashing due to a huge volume of traffic. Nothing anyone can do right now. Thankfully, I live with my family, 2 of which are pharmacy techs, so it's not that bad. Future is still uncertain, and that's causing a bit of anxiety, but I gotta keep moving forward and doing what I can. Story 91. As someone who is still employed, reading these stories hurts. I really hope something is done to help you guys. I can only send positive vibes your ways. This is really heartbreaking to read. Story 92. Lost my job this morning. I had been writing software for airlines. First thing I saw this morning in my calendar was a meeting with HR. Half an hour later, myself. And almost everyone I worked with was redundant. We had all seen the issues, of course, but we weren't expecting such a sudden cut down to a skeleton staff. I hope it's enough to keep everything running for the sake of my colleagues still there. Story 93. I haven't technically lost my job yet. American living in Australia, and I just finished my PhD in neuroscience, secured a postdoc at MIT, and was set to start early April. This is now all postponed until the storm settles. Meanwhile, I now have no income and don't qualify for any aid from either country. Yay me! Story 94. Luxury hotel downtown here. 300 employees essentially lost their jobs when the hotel announced closure until April 15th. I'm with the reservations department, and luckily was able to work 1 day a week, essentially a one-man department, along with a few coworkers, going to use my PTO, which I have plenty of, and apply for unemployment as a safety blanket. I pray for all those who are going through a more difficult time. Travel, hospitality industry got hit hard, seems almost overnight. Story 95. I'm in university and just got laid off my host, expediter job at a fancy restaurant in the city. I was supposed to move next month to across the country, which will be postponed anyways. But after this next month, I stop receiving student grants, and if I don't have my job soon, I may not be able to move anyways. My girlfriend lives where I was planning to move to, so I may not see her for another few months. Story 96. I'm a tour guide. We make most of our money between March and June due to traveling school groups. All March and April shifts have been canceled. I'm praying I get to work in May. When tours slow down in June, I usually work in a summer camp. There's some uncertainty there as well. Story 97. Chef, restaurant closed since our menu is not takeout friendly. Owners have been super helpful with unemployment. They also gave the staff anything that wasn't freezable like produce and stuff. I'm honestly proud to work for them in the way they handled it. Story 98. I've been working for McDonald's for almost 16 years. I went back to school a few years ago and have been working part-time at McDonald's as a manager. I got a call yesterday for an interview at one of my top picks for employment in the sector I want to work in. Got an email today that my interview has been postponed. I'm almost out and coronavirus is keeping me there. Story 99. I just got laid off about 2 hours ago. My company, which was in the health and wellness industry, had over 1,200 employees and everyone was laid off via a PDF on a company worksite. I'd just gotten a promotion to an area manager last week. Story 100. My girlfriend is a private chef. She caters all sorts of events, but bread and butter is weddings, private functions, corporate events, etc. Our country isn't that badly affected yet. So she has 2 events on this weekend, but after that, absolutely nothing. Story 101. Worked as a social media manager for a retail store. They let me go as they weren't making enough sales to make sense paying me, and also made a point to say it. Wasn't because of the virus or the bushfires, yet both severely impacted how many sales we made so. I now can't find a new job because nowhere's hiring.